I also want to switch the topic a little bit. I heard the rumor that one of your students wrote a book about sex of the dawn.
Sex at dawn. Yes.
Dawn.
Yes.
And it speaks about human species being what do you call this in English? Non-monogamous.
Yes.
I forgot the word. Stephen, help me. So, do you have a point of view on that?
Well, yes. This is one of my students, Christopher Ryan, and this was his doctoral dissertation.
Uh-huh.
He wrote his doctoral dissertation on mate selection in the Pleistocene.
Uh-huh.
And after he graduated, he and his wife, Casilda, turned this into a book, Sex at Dawn. It doesn't mean having sex in the morning. Mm-hmm. It means sex at the dawn of human history. Now, it's a very controversial book because what Chris does is to link human behavior to the bonobo apes. Mm-hmm. And the bonobos are very sexually promiscuous. Mm-hmm. And he is making the case in the book that in early history, sex was used as for community bonding. Mm. Because back in the early days, people didn't have any idea that having sex is what produced babies. Yes, it happened that they had babies, but they didn't make the connection between the sex act and having babies until somewhat later. Of course, they had sex anyway, and they had sex as a community function, community solidarity. Now,
interesting.
The writers who oppose Chris say, no, human beings are more closely related to the chimpanzees, and the chimpanzees are not sexually promiscuous. They're more monogamous. So this is an interesting debate, And I'm so glad that his book has become a bestseller because it has stimulated discussion of this very important issue. And I think, if nothing else, it points out that perhaps America should look at itself and realize how much sexual hypocrisy is going on. Because sex is used to sell movies, to sell automobiles, to sell food. And we see sex on television, sex in advertising, and so sex is thrown at people from a very early age.
To engage, yes.
Yes, right.
Yeah, right.
So then, let's take Hollywood, the movie stars who have been acting in very erotic movies, if their husband or wife goes to bed with somebody else, oh, they're unfaithful, I'll get a divorce, this is terrible, it's the worst thing in the world. Well, that's overreaction. Overreaction. I like the point of view of Luciano Pavarotti's wife. He was a famous opera singer. And he was very devoted to his wife, but he was very charismatic. He had a lot of girlfriends on the side. And she said, I don't care, he can have as many girlfriends as he wants, just so he comes home to me. So they had a very happy marriage. Now, that's not the lifestyle for everyone. But I think that Americans are very hypocritical. They talk a lot about sex on the one hand, and then when it comes to monogamy, they make too much of an issue if somebody strays. And so I think that the book will stimulate some good discussion on this particular topic.
And how do you feel?
I think it's wonderful if a couple can be monogamous and live together and have a good relationship and grow old together. This is wonderful. But we have to be realistic. This is not the way that everybody lives their life. So if they live their life in a way that doesn't hurt people, that doesn't make people feel guilty, this is a lifestyle that we should give a little more attention, maybe a little more respect to.
Yeah, thank you. And I also wanted to ask, can you put in like maybe few sentences, if you have like a vision or a message for, you know, for audience or for the world, or the message that you live your life for. Yeah.
Oh, I'll be happy
like,
to.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can put it in several ways. When I became interested in politics, I was in high school, and we actually had a visitor, a United States Senator, by the name of Joseph Wiley, who was a very influential senator in Washington, D.C. And he gave a talk to the class, and it was something I would never forget, because he said that his advice to us was three things: laugh, love, and live. Laugh, don't take things too seriously. Love, be as loving as you can to your fellow humans, and live every moment of the day. Well, that's the message that I would like to pass on, because I've never forgotten it. I actually went to Washington, D.C. many, many years later, when Senator Wiley was head of the Foreign Relations Committee, and he took me on the private subway underground that connected the Senate office buildings with the Senate floor. And I'm one of the few civilians who got to make that ride. And then I sat in the chambers and I was able to watch the Senate deliberate, and I have been back many, many times, even after he died and was no longer there to take me on the underground trip. So, if you think about it, laughter is also very good medicine. People who bring humor into their life and into their psychotherapy, and like I say, who don't take themselves too seriously, are going to be much happier. Also, I think that love, not only sex, but spiritual love, love for one's fellow humans, love for the earth, and also service. Some people express their love by being of service to the world. And then I think living every moment of the day is another way of saying mindfulness. This is one thing I have learned from meditation, to be mindful. Because if you're mindful, if you meditate, not only sitting silently and meditating, but if you're constantly aware of what's going on, you're not going to miss anything, and you're not going to make decisions that get you in trouble. I've made a lot of very, very bad decisions in my life. I'm still making them. But that's because I'm not mindful. I'm not paying attention to what is going on. And paying attention is so important in today's world if we're going to make the most of the life that we are given.
Well, I wanted to ask you about, you said that mistakes, you made some mistakes.
Yes.
Because you're not mindful. Can you maybe say about one that, or?
Oh, yes. Oh, good heavens, yes. Yes. I have...
Something you wish to do differently, I guess.
I have... Yes, I made this is a funny mistake. Okay. I gave a talk in the state of Washington, and the actress Salma Hayek was in the audience. And I couldn't believe that she was in the audience, and they said, "Would you like to meet her?" And I'd love to meet her. She's one of my favorite actresses. And I was so overwhelmed when I saw her. I went up and I hugged her and I kissed her. I said, "Salma Hayek, I love you." And she was blown away, and I introduced her to my friend, Giskin Jones, who was the co-author of our Rolling Thunder book, the grandson of Rolling Thunder. That Giskin Salma Hayek is from Mexico. She was the queen of Mexican soap operas, daytime television. She gave it all up to come to Hollywood. She studied English 5 hours a day so that she could get roles in Hollywood. She said, "How did you know so much about me?" And I said, "I think it's wonderful to have more people of color in movies, so I followed your encouragement. Oh, would you have lunch with me? I said, I'd be delighted. So we had a wonderful lunch together. We had a wonderful dinner together. We talked about many personal things, as a matter of fact. And she said, oh, I want you and Sidian to come to my ranch. And I said, fine. Did I give her my card? Did I give her my email address? Did I give her my phone number? No. That was a terrible mistake. Because celebrities become very excited, and then the next day some new excitement comes up, and they forget about the excitement of the previous day. So I lost my chance to visit Selma Hayek's ranch. So that was sort of a funny mistake. But I've made more serious mistakes. I have been the victim of a scam on the internet. I was in the Philippines, and I was supposed to meet somebody from Dubai to talk about getting a job for somebody I knew in Dubai. And he was kidnapped and held hostage, and I thought, this is my fault. And so I sent a great deal of money to the police, and then I had to send money to pay ransom, and I lost $3,000 before I found out this was all a scam. It was all lies. They had documents, they had photographs. It was very, very cleverly set up. And now I don't send them any more money, but they still send me emails saying, we're going to send a gang to kill you in San Francisco. So that was I was not mindful. I was not paying attention.
Yeah, what does it have to do with mindfulness?
Because I should have perceived, I should have thought twice. Once things were getting out of hand, I should have checked with people in the Philippines and said, is it normal for the police to be paid when they go out on a job? And I should have said, okay, if you really have held him hostage, phone this person. There are many things I could have done to protect myself. But I felt so guilty, I felt so badly that because of me, somebody had been kidnapped and was about to be killed, that I just was not mindful. I didn't pay attention to what was actually going on.
So when our emotions and guilt gets in the way, we kind of like...
I'm a very emotional person, and sometimes my emotions, usually my emotions are very helpful, like when I have a passionate cause, like working for Native Americans and American Indians, and for civil rights, and for what Martin Luther King taught me. But sometimes they will lead me in the wrong direction. So you have to balance the emotion and the reason and put them together.
Yes. And maybe the last question I want to ask you about how you feel about death. Do you know anything? How you feel about it and what you think about it?
Well, I have, of course, been to see many, many mediums who claim that they mediate between departed people and living people. And I also have had some messages that were very accurate, one from Rolling Thunder's wife when she died. And the question I have is this the spirit of the person, or is this my memory and my imagination that is producing this information to me? So I believe in the afterlife on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. On Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, I'm very skeptical, and I take Sundays off. So all that I can say is one can make a very, very good case for an afterlife. Yes, I think there's evidence, both from reincarnation, from mediums, even from experiments, that part of the human personality survives death. And I'm going to go back to Native Americans. Many of the tribes had the concept of the long body. The long body is not only our physical body, but it's the body that extends into the past and into the future.
That's why they call it long body.
Yes. And you see, the problem with Western way of thinking, they divide mind and body. Native Americans don't. Look, when the body dies, the mind dies, because the mind comes out of the body. No, from the Native American point of view, okay, the body dies, that's only part of the long body. The other part of the long body survives. So it's all one. One part goes, one part survives, and maybe comes back again on another body. Well, I think that makes great sense.
So, do we have to prepare our long body somehow for death? Do we need to prepare ourselves, our soul, or?
Yes, I think that the best way to prepare is by being mindful. And by, this is just my own opinion, I think laughing helps prepare us for death and for survival. I think that loving certainly does. I think that the more genuine love we have for nature and for our fellow humans, the better we're going to be prepared for death and what happens after death. And I think that living in a spiritual way, living in an activist way where we're taking responsibility for what we do and making our actions count in the world prepares us. And so even if there is no afterlife, we have a legacy that we can be proud of.
Thank you, Stanley. Thank you so much. It was great. Okay. So because we have this drum on the table, maybe you can say something about it. So it's not just like.
Oh, so you haven't asked me at all about my trips to Russia.
Okay. But maybe first about the drum,
Okay.
because yeah.
I mean, I could talk an hour about the trips to Russia. You don't have that much time.
No.
But let's just say I have been to Russia a dozen times, and I've had incredible experiences on each of my trips. Okay, now
You
you
love
want
Russians.
to... Pardon me?
You love Russians.
Oh, yes, I do. I've been all over Russia.
Because every time I say something about Russia, you smile.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yes.
So, what
Well,
is this?
I was invited to Canada for a Native American ceremony that's very popular on the West Coast. It's called a potlatch, a giveaway. A famous chief had died, and it took 3 years for the tribe to get enough money to have a potlatch ceremony. This was held in a community center that the Canadian government provided, and the center was filled with Native Americans. My host and I were two of the few Euro-Americans there. The others were what the Canadians call First People. The front row was filled with chiefs. Almost 100 chiefs from other tribes were there, and they got blankets and other beautiful gifts. The rest of us got free food for 3 days. Wonderful lunches, that was enough for me. But this was a surprise gift. The man who was the master of ceremonies for the drama, the beautiful masks, the dances, all of that, just incredible. I got to meet and I got to go to his home because he knew that I was interested in post-traumatic stress disorder. And I have even talked about post-traumatic stress disorder in Russia at health conferences. And of course, this is now very tragic because many American troops are coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq with post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, the artist had post-traumatic stress disorder because as a young boy, he was forced to go to a school that was run by priests. This was before they had public schools, but the law forced him to go to school. And the priests abused him sexually. And he had to put up with this because his parents wouldn't believe it. They said the priests would never do something like that. But they did because he was so good looking and he was so charming and so beautiful that he was raped repeatedly. And then he got out of school and went to the high school, And he was glad to be rid of the priests, but then he broke loose. He became a drug dealer, he became an alcoholic, he went to prison, got out of prison, went to Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. You know what AA is?
Yeah, of course.
That saved him because they said you have to focus on a higher power, turn your life over to a higher power. I'm not going to turn the higher power over to the Catholic God. I've had enough of the Catholics. I'm going to go back to my Native American ways and give my higher power to the Great Spirit. So that's what saved him. And now he lives with his girlfriend, and he goes, and he and a group of other Native Americans sued the school. And the government at first didn't believe this, but they got documents, and they set aside $1 billion for all of the children that went to religious schools, both Catholics and Protestant, that were abused. And he got enough money to buy a fishing boat, so he earns his money by fishing.
I'm sorry we did not pay, enough attention to your work.
Some other
because
time.
because you're a well-known professor and you wrote lots of books and you're well-known in Russia. But I was, hoping to have some stories from you, so I hope it's okay.
Well, whatever you would like, you just ask me. If not now, some other time.
Okay. It was really fun.
Yes, it was so nice to have such a lovely interview. Your English so good, I could hear you so well.
Sometimes when I don't know how to say, you still understand me.
Oh,
you
yeah.
still get me.
Oh,
so
yes,
that's,
of course, sure.
That's
Yeah. Yes, I know some of the words are difficult.